welcome to the webcast. We're at the end of another week, April 3rd, and for those of you who are weather buffs, you know what that means. Anniversary of the super outbreak, 1974. So that was 46 years ago. Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and a lot of adjacent states there got hit by a super outbreak. Well, for today, nothing like that, but we do have a surge of cold air coming down through the southern plains there. Here's a look at the surface map, and that shows the cold air coming up south out of Kansas, Nebraska, where it's in the 30s and 40s. And then out in New Mexico and Colorado, a little bit of upslope developing, mostly in the Raton and Trinidad area. And we can see that here on the satellite loop. Most of what's in Utah and Colorado, that's going to be snow-capped mountains. A little bit of cirrus moving through the Nellis Range area, pretty clear over Arizona and Mexico. And then back in Texas, some pretty stout isotropic lift. Behind the cold front, which is, you can kind of pick it out right there, especially down there in Texas where it forms a bit of an arc cloud. So we'll zoom in on that and take a closer look. And there it is. You can see the Arcus cloud surging southward, and most of that is going to be stratus, pretty low to the ground, maybe about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. Now that front is triggering a few thunderstorms. Out in the Edwards Plateau region, you can see the anvils right there, and even a little bit of outflow. I'll stop it right there, and you can see that outflow pool kind of moving out towards the northwest. So we are triggering a few storms, and then out ahead of it, well, one thing that's kind of cool is we can see a gravity wave effect. See that right there? There seems to be something surging southward. And then south of that, you can see the flow of moist air coming up from the Gulf. And then above that, patchy cirrus. So really a lot to look at here. Then out there in California, maritime polar air covering the San Joaquin Valley and much of the northern two-thirds of California. Looks like a bit of low pressure there in Nevada and the California desert. Some of that may be baroclinic in nature. I know we're getting towards the end of spring, and that's when we start seeing the development of a heat low out over Arizona, almost semi-permanent there. I'm not too sure that that's what this is. The temperatures are only in the 70s there in the desert, so I think this would be of baroclinic origin there. So there's a look at those cells over the hill country. Pretty disorganized, and looks like a lot of it's elevated. Strongest cell I can find is south of Fredericksburg there, close to the I-10 area. And some of these cells further to the west, they look kind of patchy and disorganized. Nothing particularly favored there, but this one cell, southwest of Del Rio, this is over a mountainous area of Mexico, so there's a little bit of orographic lift involved, and that cell actually looks pretty interesting there. Yep, there it is. Let's see, that's currently about 37 miles southwest of Del Rio. Now, one thing that I notice is that the strongest core is pretty much in the center of that cell, so it doesn't look particularly severe at this time. It's got kind of a pulsing multi-cell look. So there's our cell there in Mexico. I'm going to put a dot where I would want to be observing, so maybe in that area right there. If we switch over to the base velocity just to start looking at products, you might think that this is a couplet here, but we're actually observing outbounds here and inbounds there. And normally we want to see the opposite. So this is kind of painting out maybe a little bit of anticyclonic rotation. So I'm not really sure what's happening. I think it's still in the process of organizing. It's got kind of a multi-cell structure there, so I don't think that's quite coming together just yet. There could be an indication of something maybe in this area here. That's one area I probably want to keep an eye on. See, that's out ahead of it. So this could start coming together, and I would want to keep an eye on this over the next few hours because it does have some severe potential. There's a look at that cell there on the visible imagery coming together. It still looks fairly young. fact, it looks like maybe the cold front isn't quite caught up to it. See if we look about 1830Z. Looks like the front's up here. This is just strictly orographic. But I think maybe later on that front may start undercutting that storm a little bit. So we may see some propagation to the southeast. There's a look at the southeastern U.S., kind of a mild day and kind of dry. Lots of dew points in the 30s and 40s. I would characterize this as a fairly nice day, but the front is starting to approach, and I would expect to see those clouds start to increase as we get the instability increasing ahead of that front. So there's our nice day there in the southeastern U.S., VFR, clear skies, all the way from Florida up to Virginia. In the northeast, we've got this old occlusion that's still kind of spinning around out there in the Atlantic. I would say that this has been out there for about 5 or 6 days now. So you can see the eye of that kind of moving south there. Very well defined. I might see if we can get in there on some of the closer imagery. But that's spreading a little shield of clouds into New York and Pennsylvania. That's mostly mid and upper level cloud. And then out to the west, we can see that new Canadian front moving through Minnesota into Iowa. There's our map for the northeastern U.S. Baroclinic system moving through Wisconsin and Illinois. Looks like the nose of that warm sector extends about all the way up to Rockford, maybe up to Madison there, where it's 70 degrees. And then I've traced out this warm front that goes all the way down to, looks like about Louisville. And then the cold front itself coming into the St. Louis area, into northern Arkansas there, and behind it, some very cool weather. Continental polar air moving down with 20s and a little bit of snow there in northern Minnesota. The northwestern U.S. looking like this. Large area of cold air coming down from the Dakotas, pushing those teens and 20s into South Dakota, Wyoming, and then out to the west there, we've got the southerly return flow starting to take effect there once again. Some nice downslope around the Great Falls, Helena area of Montana, and then we've just got kind of a stagnant pattern across Oregon there with 30s and 40s. Very cool for this time of year. And maybe a new front coming together in British Columbia. This looks like a snowfield all the way from Fargo back westward towards central Wyoming. So it looks like they've been hammered once again. Wyoming has been getting it hard this year. Looks like kind of a mixture of snow cover across the northern Rockies and instability, indicating by those cumulus elements there. You can see those going up. Looks like there's some height falls coming in there from British Columbia. Some unstable air there on the Pacific coast. We can kind of see that right there. So it looks like things are going downhill once again. Looks like the Willamette Valley all the way up into Seattle filling in with clouds as that marine layer comes inland. Okay, I think it's time for a quick look at the upper air chart, and then we'll move on to the forecast for this weekend. Well, first of all, here's our current chart, and what I'm looking for here is the thickness pattern. See right there, I can see a gradient there indicating a front. So just drawing on the fronts, I'm going to get something like this. The warm front there in Illinois is very shallow, so I'm going to put that there. And then there's a old occlusion off the coast. So this is telling me that we've got support for that surface front, and we would expect to see the jet maybe coming in from California or northwest Mexico and then kind of curving up towards Manitoba across the Central Plains. And indeed, that's what we do see. The flow is a little bit more split up than I expected, though. Looks like the polar front jet maybe comes into Oregon there, across the Central Plains, and then up towards Manitoba like that. And I think we're picking up the other segment. That's the subtropical jet flowing across Texas there. And then it looks like we have another segment feeding into that offshore occlusion, and then there's going to be a baroclinic system further east. That's off the picture. But the main upper level low looks like that's over Alberta. Some of that troughing extending down towards Washington there. And that's given us some of the unstable air across the Bitterroot Range and northern Idaho. All right, so moving ahead, let's see what happens to those storms. Take a look down there in the Del Rio area. I'm going to go forward 3 hours to 7 p.m., 10 p.m., and then midnight. You can see those kind of moving southeastward along that cold front, and then further north through Texas into Missouri, a little bit of isentropic lift, getting some weak showers and a little bit of light rain going. After that, nothing much to look at, just the cold air spreading into the Midwest and the south central U.S. And then we get up to tomorrow. High pressure moves into Minnesota there, and it looks like we have frontogenesis beginning there in Northern California and northwest Nevada. Some good snow showers there. We'll move that forward. You can see that rain there, that kind of overrunning pattern in Texas. Then going forward to Sunday night. That's what I'm seeing there for Sunday night. High pressure across Lake Huron. There's that cold southerly flow down there into Texas and the Gulf, so it's going to stay cloudy, likely in Texas. Lee side trough developing there in Colorado, and then our California system looks like that's moving through the San Joaquin Valley, coming up on Bakersfield and Santa Barbara. A lot of rain and in the mountains, snow showers. And then the cold core low, of course, looks like that's offshore right there. And this is kind of how it looks to me for Monday. Ridging across the northeast U.S., so weather should be quiet in that part of the country. The Gulf is just now starting to open up, bringing moisture up into Texas, so Monday will be that transition day where things start warming up. Some showers out there in the mountains of northern Mexico there, indicating strong jet stream activity, maybe subtropical jet coming up. Some moisture coming up that way. And then that frontal system in Southern California looks like that's broken up into a series of waves. I think I can see maybe one wave there, another wave down here, and maybe the frontal system up in Utah and Wyoming linking up with this low up in Montana. The main cold core low looks like that's off the coast of San Francisco there, and so we're going to see showers and snow showers throughout the state there, kind of a wet pattern, and they definitely need it in California, especially going into this summer. Spring is really when it's critical for them to really get that groundwater up and fill the reservoirs. And there's a Canadian surface analysis. Let me draw the land masses. Okay, yeah, there's the land masses, and you can see that big high up there. It's still at 1065 millibars, still quite strong. So it looks like the boundaries are kind of, well, yeah, I guess that's some warm front there. Kind of stationary, actually. Then back here, yeah, this is all part of the same air mass all the way down from Victoria Island all the way down to Alberta. Very impressive. Man, that's just like a huge dome of cold air across the Canadian Arctic. Maybe we can use weather nerds to visualize that. Let's try a cross-section, maybe from south of the South Pole all the way down to Minnesota. Wonder what that would look like. Well, there's our cross-section there from around the North Pole all the way down to Minnesota. It looks like this air mass is kind of shallow. Let's see, frontal boundary, maybe something like that. So I don't think it goes much higher than about 5,000 to 10,000 feet. I can see another frontal boundary possibly up in this area, kind of an upper air front, maybe over Manitoba. So let's confirm that with the soundings. We'll try Cambridge Bay right here. It's pretty close to that cold dome. Let's see, we need to get the skew-t. Well, it's a very interesting looking sounding there. Yeah, see how shallow it is. We go from minus 30 all the way up to minus 8, up at that's about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. And maybe the top of the frontal layer is about right there. That's going to be about 6,000 feet. So it's very shallow. It's not representative of the Arctic as a whole. It's very shallow. And then above that, this is more of a seasonal type of air mass. And you can see that kind of confirmed there with the tropopause heights. It's up there at about 36,000 feet, which is kind of on the high side. It's more of a warm season polar level there. Yeah, I figure we would just take a quick look at that in digital atmosphere. There it is. At this time, it's 1055 millibars. Centered over there, Baffin Island, and then the flow is just coming out anticyclonically from that system there. And that's the source of a lot of cold air that we have coming into the northern and northeast U.S. Now, one question I regularly get is, how do you produce these maps? Well, I use a program called Digital Atmosphere. Well, I wrote it and we sell it. So you just go to weathergraphics.com, go over to the left side, software, and digital atmosphere. That'll take you to the digital atmosphere page. You can download a copy that goes to our download section and you can check it out. And that comes with the digital atmosphere manual. You want the 2019 revision, and you go down to the Planetary Maps page. There's this map section, and it's got information on the planetary map. That's how we're doing these. You just search on the internet for them and follow the directions, and you'll be able to find some examples. I think it does ship with one sample base map. The ones we're using, those are customized and made here in-house. And Digital Atmosphere does take care of all your data downloads. So there's a bunch of sources there. We use College DuPage for some of our data, and there's a bunch of other sources here. And that'll import it and plot it. And if you don't like one of the plots, if you see an error, there's tools like quality control, so you can fix bad plots. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Anyway, that's probably about all I want to show for now. We probably should have a little tutorial that might be fun to do sometime. So I figure I'll let you check this out. This is our editing program. This is how we put the show together. Down the bottom part, you can see the timeline with some of our clips that we're kind of assembling as we go. See if we play it right there where it's 70 degrees. And then I've traced out this little audio feedback because it's going through the mic and everything. Anyway, that's how we put the show together. Kind of record it and put the bits together and look up new sources of information, bring up the website, and up at the top left, you can kind of see how the show comes together. See, our first bit was recorded at 2:40 p.m., last bit 4:37 p.m., so that's 2 hours right there of recording. We've still got to finish up the editing, still got to go out and fly the drone, and then do the upload, which is another 45 minutes. So this takes up a big chunk of the afternoon, and this kind of shows you why it's so important to have your support. I've got software and books that have to be out, and those earn X amount of money, and we have to weigh that against paying the bills and all that. And the support has been great, don't get me wrong, but we are kind of walking a fine line here, considering how many hours are going into the recordings every day. So we're kind of looking at this and kind of evaluating it as we go. Anyway, if you are a Patreon supporter, you're going to get in on tomorrow's supporter-only stream. We have that on Saturday and Sunday, so that's got some special information, extras, bonus bits, so you'll enjoy that. Otherwise, if you're not a Patreon supporter, you're welcome to continue watching, but we'll be back on Tuesday. Our public streams are Tuesday through Friday usually. So that's about all I have for this evening. So keep up on the news there. I do urge you to follow your quarantining and social distance, that is very important, as this outbreak is really snowballing here. And we will see you tomorrow. Take care all. Bye-bye.